some were not married, and the fate of war was hanging, not in balance, but was so precariously hanging, anything could happen. Although the Muslims believed they would become victorious, but this is the general state of statement about wars which applies to every such situation. The wars are uncertain things. So what would you do with those ladies? There is no separate war camp. The result would be, if they are left free, then they will play havoc with the chastity of the whole society. Then they will be free to go here and there and give vent to their own passions while they are not properly trained and educated. They come from a much freer society than what we find in Islam. Now, if you don't permit that, then I believe much more damage will be done, not only to those ladies themselves, but to the society as a whole. The proof is that after every war in Europe, the moral standard went down the drain like a ton of bricks. It sank suddenly so deep that all those who keep count of these things, they have written books on this, they say there is a very definite proof that every war lowers the standard of morality in the area where the war is fought. So Islam provides a legal outlet. And who does it? God. Now, if it is God, this is the question which you must address, then there is no crime involved, because He is the maker of law. Al-amru kulluhu lillah. He is the master. He made the institution of marriage, and He prohibited you from doing this and from doing that, and permitted you to do this or do that. So who is the maker of law? If a law is proclaimed by God, that in such situation, under limited conditions, you are permitted to have husband and wife relationship with such women, then where is the immorality of that? The alternative cannot be conceived. This is the only course which was available, but not devised by people themselves, but a course which was advised by God. If that had not happened, I can't imagine what might have happened then. Then they were told to treat all the slaves, not only women, but all the slaves, with such respect that they should feed them with what they feed themselves on, and they should dress them in the clothes in which they dress themselves. The result was that it was sometimes very difficult for people to distinguish between a slave and a master. And repeatedly we find reference in the Islamic history that even a caliph walking to market for shopping along with somebody, and people don't know who is the master and who is the slave. Once Hadhrat Ali Radhiyallahu Ta'ala Anhu asked for 2 pieces of cloth for some suit, and he chose exactly the similar ones. So the cloth merchant said, "Why do you have 2 pieces of exactly the similar pattern, color and everything? I have other designs, I have other patterns. Why don't you choose from that?" He said, No, this other one is for my slave. I said, "For your slave?" He said, "Yes." He said, "I heard Rasul Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Dress them in what you dress yourselves. Make them eat of what you eat." So this is the Islamic teaching. And the respect shown to these slave women is unparalleled in the history of relationship of war. It is said that if they bear a child, then they are like your lawfully wed wives. They have all the rights which the wives have. And their children will not be considered illegitimate. They would be like legitimate children, and they would have all the rights on the society and on your property. Was this ever done by any people in the world? in treatment to vis-a-vis their treatment to prisoners of war? So look at it in the totality, and then you'll understand that Islamic teaching is far more respectable and civilized than any practice or any teaching by any people of the world at any age. If you study the injunctions relating to slaves in Islam, you'll be amazed at the beauty of that. People say Islam permits to enslave others. It's false. The Holy Quran is the only book which says no slaves can be made of free human beings except out of a bloody war where the battle is fierce and a lot of blood is shed. Not out of skirmishes. You go out and you have a skirmish. According to the Holy Quran, it is forbidden to enslave anybody out of a skirmish you have in your journey or anywhere. So it lays down the condition, a fierce, bloody battle is waged. As a result of that, when prisoners come, they are the only way of they are the only valid prisoners of war. About other situations regarding the prisoners of war, now about slaves, we find more than 12 ways of releasing the prisoners, but no other way of enslaving them, enslaving free human beings, except the war which I have just mentioned. But you read in the Holy Quran at so many places, if you do this, if you commit such a sin, if you make such an omission, the punishment for that is emancipate a liberate a slave, or liberate 10 slaves, or liberate so many slaves. And then the Holy Quran also mentions the possibility of a slave to force his freedom by entering into a contract which is called mukatabat. And this is written in the Holy Quran. If a slave thinks that he wants to earn his freedom by paying him after he is freed, and if he renders enough guarantees to the effect that he will keep his contract, then if the master of that slave or a woman or a maid slave refuses to do that, the Islamic State has the authority to enforce this. Many cases are reported when some masters insisted, no, we don't trust you, or under one excuse or another, they said, we are not going to liberate you. The slave went to the caliph and said, this is what he says and this is what I say. And the caliph heard both the sides and said, no, you must liberate him. The Holy Quran does not leave you any room to impose your own decision upon him. If he meets the conditions laid down in the Holy Quran, you have no choice but to liberate him. Have you ever heard of such master-slave relationship anywhere in the world? No. It's unbelievable. So many openings are made for the slaves to go out. And the inlet is only one, that of a fierce war. But there also the Holy Quran repeatedly lays a condition that you cannot do to your enemy what the enemy doesn't do to you. People don't observe this. It's a most beautiful and most effective measure to prevent all evil practices in war relationship. It plugs all holes. It says that if enemy transgresses against you, only then you have a right to transgress against him. If enemy insults you, only then you have a right to insult him. If the enemy kills you in a certain way, which is not proper, only then you can use that improper manner, but exactly to the extent that the enemy has done to you. Not an iota beyond, and repeatedly warns that if you must revenge, do it up to the extent that enemy does it.